Okay, I got a quick one for you. Lately, I've seen this question come up quite a bit in some of the Facebook groups that I'm in. People are asking, what are the best ways to dial in your delay settings for a good lead tone? Well, what I'm going to do is show you what has worked really well for me, and maybe you can incorporate this in your settings and try it out for yourself. What you're going to hear is one of my solos in a full mix, and I'm going to do it with the delay settings that I like, and I'm also going to do it in some delay settings that I see a lot of people using, which is like that really tight slapback kind of delay that I still see people using today. And what you're going to hear is how it sounds in a full mix, and I'm going to give you some isolated portions of that same solo with both delay settings so that you can hear what's going on underneath everything on an isolated track. Now, I hope you heard what I heard with this comparison. If you notice on the more tighter sounding delay settings, where it was more like a slapback, more subtle type delay setting, you can hear everything pretty good, but those settings didn't create a lot of space and excitement in the solo, and it just made it sound kind of small. And with the preferred settings, which is around 850 milliseconds, and in stereo, what you heard was a huge amount of space, but you could still hear all the notes very well, and there was no interruption of the original notes with the repeated notes because there was enough space between them. That's why I use the bigger settings as well. Now, typically I will use about 850 milliseconds in my stereo delay settings. And one of the other reasons why I use stereo is because you can hear it starting on one side and then starting again over here, and it gives you this kind of washy kind of sound, and it just creates all this huge space for your solo. And I'll demonstrate that here. You hear how it all started on one side, and then all of a sudden it started again on this side, and then you had this huge swarm of notes going on, but it still didn't interrupt the initial notes that I was playing. You see, delay is a great tool to use to create space. A lot of guys think, oh, I use delay to cover up mistakes or whatever. That's not really what it's for. I mean, honestly, delay repeats your mistakes. So there goes that myth. I mean, so basically what you want to do is use it to create a lot of space. You want to create as much space as you can without crossing the tasteful boundaries that are there to keep us in check. And I've found that the 850 milliseconds has served me well. You can do the tap tempo and stuff like that, but just remember that if you're going to do the tap tempo, don't do it in the quick repeats. Do it in longer repeats. In other words, maybe half or whole notes. It's actually going to create more space for you. Now, regarding delay, there's two ways you can kind of think of it. Number one, you can think of it as when a beautiful woman walks by and then this wonderful scent follows her. And a more aggressive way to think about it is a swarm. So you got these blazing notes coming by, and then you have a swarm of repeated notes that come right behind them to back it up. And it creates this huge, aggressive, cavernous space, and it makes your solo sound more aggressive and more majestic at the same time. So if you dial in your delay settings correctly, you can really create a lot of space both in a live and recorded setting, and it really does make your solo sound a lot bigger and more professional. I mean, you don't have to be the most technical player to have your solo sound really huge and majestic. All you need to do is learn how to dial in your delay settings properly, and everything you play will really have this great enhancement to it. Now, keep in mind, there's always exceptions to some of the things that I'm saying here. So if you're playing a solo that actually has the need for a really tight slapback type delay, we'll go ahead and dial it in there. And conversely, if you have a solo that is more like a singing solo that has a lot of long singing lines in it, well, you might even want to dial in more milliseconds, like 11 or 1200 milliseconds, to really make those notes ring out and give them a nice spin around the room. And remember something, stereo's always better than mono. Now, we don't all have stereo setups, but if you do have a stereo setup, you should be using stereo delay because it does sound a lot bigger, as you've heard in the examples earlier in this video. Now, one more final tip that I'll add on this too is if you add a little bit of subtle reverb after the delay, it gives the notes a chance to kind of melt into that cavernous space that the reverb creates. And it can really enhance things as well and add a little bit of subtlety to your delay, and it takes off a lot of the harshness of the repeats. So when appropriate, try using that as well. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have two delay settings set up for one of my solos. So if I'm doing a lot of fast lines and quick riffs, I'll actually have the delay settings around 850 milliseconds. And then at the end of the solo, sometimes I'll end it on some really long singing lines, and then I'll tap on a delay setting that is about 1200 milliseconds to really open that part up. So that's kind of nice to do as well. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this. And to all of my subscribers, thank you very much. I appreciate you more than words can say. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, and click the bell so that you can be notified when I come out with new episodes. Well, I got a lot of great stuff coming up, and I'll see you on the next one.